What's going on, guys? We are now live. So today is going to be one of those topical Q&As where I just take one topic from the week that I was either suggested or asked about, or I just found interesting, and just kind of break it down. It's like a quicker Q&A compared to the ones I'm going to do like tomorrow, which is the Friday Q&As, which are going to be just questions I get from all different social medias throughout the week, and then I just answer those kind of from my own opinion, my own experiences and stuff. But today is going to be one of those where I have a one-page summary. I'm going to go through everything I researched, and you guys can find the references to everything. Hey, what's up, Dunks for Christ? Made it to the Q&A. So everything is in the description if you guys want to look into any of the references that I looked into or read about. But yeah, so I'm going to get right into this question, which I actually got from somebody on my Instagram. His name is TK Journey to Dunking. If you guys want to look him up, but basically he was telling me about how he's from Switzerland, and he was basically telling me about how he has a coach there who has been training him with a type of strength training, but he not necessarily, he doesn't feel like it's necessarily helping him to jump, and he says he feels confused with the type of training that he's doing, because he feels like in Switzerland there's not a lot of emphasis on vertical jump training like there is here, at least from his standpoint. Like he says, he watches guys in the United States and like sees how they train here and stuff, and he just feels like he hasn't been getting the right type of training there, so he wanted to kind of get my take on it. So I kind of gave him my opinion on some things, but then he just kept telling me about like what type of training they have him do there, and it just got me more and more interested. And I said I was just going to do a whole Q&A on this, and I found a lot of interesting information, a lot of interesting studies and stuff to get into. So yeah, it's pretty much a kind of like where this question came from, and I'm gonna get into the type of training that he told me about that they're having him do there. So he was basically telling me that it's almost like a drop set, if you guys have heard of that. So basically, you'll do a heavier weight for a certain amount of reps with a certain with him though. They have him doing a certain amount of time under tension, which basically is having the muscle under the load for a specific amount of time. So he told me that they were having him do the count. I'm gonna bring up the count really quick that he said that he was doing. Um, so he said that the count that he's training with is 3-2-3-2. So basically, he said it was like 3 seconds. He said so with the leg press, for example, he gave me. So he says you push the weight up for 3 seconds, pause for 2 seconds, lower for three seconds, and then hold it for another 2 seconds. So that would be a total 10. That'd be a total of 10 seconds of time under tension, and he was doing this for 11 reps. So that'd be a total of 110 seconds with the whole workout. So yeah, so one of the articles I was reading kind of gave a little table about time under tension and what type of training is being done with different amounts of time under tension. So basically, they broke it down into strength and power, endurance, and growth. Growth coming before endurance, but basically, strength and power is anywhere between 1 to 6 reps, and having the time under tension be 4 to 20 seconds. So an example of that would be say you're squatting. So that would be like lowering the weight for 2 seconds, pausing for 1, going up for 1. So that's a total of 4 seconds. Say you're doing 4 reps. So you're doing 4 reps of that. So that'd be 16 seconds total of time under tension. So in that case, it'd be in the 4 to 20 second range, which is training more strength and power. So with him, to kind of answer his question and get more into what he was asking me, from this table, he's training more endurance. And I kind of, when he told me that he was doing that and then also doing a drop set on top of that, that's kind of that's what I replied with, because it just seemed like he was training the muscle over a longer period of time, and it just seemed that it was too long to be in the power and strength aspect of training. So I said that I would look more into it, and from this table that does verify that training in the 110 seconds that he was training with, that he was training more endurance. Whereas I'm going to get into it a lot more in a minute, but jumping is a power driven movement. So you would want to focus on working in the 4 to 20 second range rather than the 70 to 100 second range of time under tension. Um, so yeah, that's basically what I wanted to get into with going over his workout, and that led me, going over his workout kind of led me to other things, and I didn't necessarily just get into time under tension and what that meant for vertical jumping. It just from researching and stuff, it just led me into other aspects of training and other interesting points about how to train for vertical jump. So two things that I found really interesting was the difference between force and power. And I feel like these are two big things to kind of define and understand the differences between, because it could drastically change how you're training if you know the difference between training force versus training power. So these definitions are going to be more complex than what I go into right here, but these are going to be a general definition for just kind of how I understood them and what they mean in simple terms. So pretty much force so training force is just an interaction between two objects. So and with that force, that it's going to end up in a change in velocity with whatever object that you're trying to move. So it's basically transferring energy into something, to put it into simple terms. And the equation for force is mass times acceleration. And I'm going to read some of the notes I have here to just kind of make it a little easier to understand. So I wrote force is interaction between two things that causes an object to change velocity, meaning mass times acceleration, transferring energy into something. And from the article I read, so powerlifting, it has the label power in it, but powerlifting is actually a force-driven movement, because you're not necessarily focusing on how fast you move the weight in powerlifting. It's more just how heavy can you move a specific load. So it's not training speed as much as it's training just lifting a heavy amount of weight. So that's kind of why, ironically, powerlifting isn't power. It's not training power. It's more training force. Or on the other hand, whereas power is a rate of basically the rate that the force is being implemented into an object. So basically, work over time and work being force times distance. So how fast you move that load is more or less what power training is, and how far you move it. So an example of power training would be like plyometrics, vertical jumping, explosive push-ups, basically anything that you're transitioning a given amount of energy into something and moving it as fast as possible. That's pretty much what power training is. So an example of power training would be more like Olympic lifting, because you're focusing on moving a specific weight faster rather than moving a heavier weight slower. So it might not necessarily be slower, but you're not focusing on so much just moving a heavy load. You're focusing on moving a load fast versus just moving a heavy load. So like a simple equation I wrote for power is just like a fast and heavy movement compared to just a heavier movement. And so kind of what I got into with the studies I was reading was that that the training that would be more optimal for vertical jumping would be power training, because like that article said, power training is more of like a plyometric movement, more of like a ballistic movement where you're just moving and releasing a given amount of force. So I'm going to bring up one of the studies I was reading, and so in this study they took subjects and separated them into two groups to test the changes of their counter movement jump and squat jump over a 10-week period. So they separated the groups in. They worked with 3 to 6 sets. The first let's see, they did 3 sets in the first 2 weeks, and then 4, 5, and 6 in the final 3 weeks. And then they had them separated into a control group, a group that trained with weights, a group that trained with plyometrics, and a group that trained with max power. And interestingly, they found that the max power group actually had the greatest increase in vertical jump height versus the plyometric and weight training group. And they found that in the max power group, that the most optimal weight to train with to train max power was 30% of the 1 rep max. So in the weight training group, they had them train with 80 to 90% of their 1 rep max for 4 to 8 repetitions, and they compared that across the control, who didn't do any weight training, didn't find any increase in their vertical jump after the 10-week. It was very, very minimal, less than 1% change. And then the max power group, on the other hand, for the counter movement jump, they found, I wrote it here, they found an increase, a 17.6% increase in the counter movement jump and a 15.2% increase in the squat jump pre to post training in the 10-week program. So yeah, I'm going to bring up the study right now just to show you guys the graph of that. These are probably two studies I looked into that I linked in the description are probably two of the best studies I've read for vertical jump training, and it kind of changed my perspective on how I might change my training. And again, to answer the TK journey to dunking, I feel like the best type of training is one that combines force generation with power output. So basically taking a given amount of force and applying it fast into a powerful movement. So I don't feel like training with drop sets and having a long time under tension is the most optimal way to train vertical jump. Like, yes, you might gain strength from it, but you're working more on the endurance end. It's kind of like saying, if you're training to sprint, would you run 5 miles if you're training to only do like to only run like a short sprint? So that's basically like how I'm looking at the different types of training that I looked into, and from the two studies, they both showed that max power is the most optimal way to increase your vertical. So yeah, I'm gonna bring up the study right now. So here was just like a brief. So this was actually the graph of the results. So they had the control, the weight group, plyometrics, and the max power group. And as you guys can see, that was the counter movement pre to post, and then in the squat jump pre to post, also had similar looking results with the max power generating the greatest increase in vertical jump. Hey, what's up, Hillel? Yeah, so I just found that really interesting. And so if you guys have ever looked into different types of training, what this type of training kind of correlates to is called contrast training. And contrast training is basically doing like, or one type of training that this could be correlated to is like contrast training, because contrast training is basically training a heavy loaded movement, and then while you're right after working that heavy loaded movement, you mimic that movement with a lighter load. So say you're doing a squat, or say you're doing box squats. So you have like 400 pounds on the bar. So if you're doing a 400-pound box squat for say like 3 to 5 reps, then right after that movement, you would go into something like a squat jump with the barbell on your back with 30% of the load that you did for the box squat. So that way, and that's actually called post-activation potentiation. It's kind of there's not much research on it, but it's basically just the theory that you have an increased amount. Your muscles can output a greater amount of power from the previous contraction that you just put it under with a heavier load. So yeah. So basically with contrast training, you would work like 90% load and then 30% right after with like a movement that's similar to the movement that you just did prior to the contrast movement, which again would be more of like a ballistic movement of the loaded movement that you did beforehand. So yeah, so again, to get into that, to talk about the results with that study, for both the counter movement jump pre and post, the max power showed to have the greatest results, which I know I said that before. Dunks for Christ said, contrast training seems very interesting to try. Have you done it before? So I haven't specifically worked contrast training in the sense that I would do like a loaded exercise and then right after that do like a contrast movement. I would do more of like loaded exercises and then later on in the workout do like a contrast movement. But contrast training specifically, it seems like it's specifically doing a movement that is similar to the movement you just did. And that type of training I have not done, but I'm really interested to try it after reading these studies and looking into this. That's why I put the title of this video, or this Q&A, is the best training to increase your vertical, because from looking into this, it does seem like it's going to help. It would help a lot in terms of like increasing power output, and to increase your vertical overall. So Dunks for Christ, I'm definitely going to try this. So look for workout videos on it pretty soon. But the way I think I'm going to do it is something like do a loaded squat, like a box squat, and then do the counter, or like a contrast of that, and do like a 30% load max power squat jump later on the work. And then, like, next in the workout, I'll probably do something like a deadlift or a hex bar deadlift, and then do like a hex bar deadlift jump, or something that's like releasing that force into more of a power movement. So yeah, basically from this, like another thing I just kind of read into, and they talked about in these studies, was they found that just general strength training, like general just lifting weight, because I've been asked about this before, if just lifting weight, like bodybuilding or whatever, if that could help increase your vertical jump. And what these study found is that can help increase your strength, or that has helped increase strength, and has been shown to increase strength in people who are novice lifters. So like people who haven't done any type of training before, that can help them and be beneficial to them. But if you're trying to train specifically, if you're trying to train a specific movement, so in this case, if you're trying to train to jump higher, then your training should be specific towards jumping higher. Like I feel like that's almost like a focus thing. Like you don't want to just be trained like haphazardly, just kind of doing random movements. Whereas if you have a set goal, then you're gonna better be able to focus your training around making that move, like optimizing that movement, if that makes sense. So that's like the kind of training I'm looking into, and that's what it seems like this training is optimizing that optimizing whatever movement that you're working towards. So for vertical jumping, like I said, it just seems like it makes sense to work more power compared to force, because the vertical jump is a power movement. You're not just staying grounded the whole time. You're releasing that force into an explosive jump. So that's the type of workouts that I feel like are best. And Dunks for Christ, again, yeah, I'm definitely going to try it. So Dunks for Christ said, so Mike, let's say I'm deadlifting, what would be a counter movement? So a contrast movement would be like doing, so it would be like stripping the bar. So say you're doing like your 80 to 90% load with a deadlift. So the contrast to that would be 30% of whatever that load was, and you're basically like you'd basically be getting off the ground with that 30% load. So almost doing like a jump, like a jumping deadlift almost, or it'd be more or less like a clean pull. So it'd be like you're still doing the deadlift motion, but you're doing it in a way that you're actually getting off the ground with the weight. And you're doing it faster. That's what makes it a power movement, is you're moving a load fast. So when you're thinking about force, just think about force as you're just strictly moving a heavy amount of weight. Whereas power is actually focusing on moving a specific weight, but as fast as you can move it. So you wouldn't want to be loading the bar with 80 to 90% of your 1 rep max if you're trying to increase power output, because it's gonna take you a while to get that weight off the ground compared to only doing 30%. You're still lifting weight, but you're just going to be doing it a lot faster and more explosive. Which that's the movement that mimics that's the movement that would mimic more of a vertical jump, is the max power movement compared to just the force movement. That's why I feel like contrast training has a lot of potential, because you're training both. You're training the force, and then right after you're training the power. So I mean, I guess you'd be training it all. It's just how much you're training force versus power in each movement. Yeah. So basically, the key point with all of this is, with whatever goal you have, think about your training as just being like a great tool to optimize that goal. So again, vertical jumping. Think about your training think about when you're training that you're doing you're doing this training to increase your vertical or to jump higher, or if you have a different goal, then just tweak your training to just be more centered around that goal. That's another reason why I set out to work towards a 50-inch vertical, because it's going to force me to optimize everything I'm doing with with training, with diet, with sleep, with recovery, with everything. I'm just gonna have to optimize everything to the point that I could actually reach a 50-inch vertical. So yeah, hopefully this helped. TK Journey to Dunking, if you're watching, or if you watch this video, just maybe bring up to your coach that you could show him the studies or whatever, and see if he says anything about max power, or tweaking your training a little bit to make it more revolved around increasing your vertical or jumping higher. So yeah. So Jerry said, how did you create your training regimen? So Jerry, I started off with doing a vertical jump program called Flight Right, but then after that, it was just through my own research and literally finding new ways to just to make the training better, because I hit a little bit of a plateau, and I just knew that from that point I would have to just start I would have to start like revolving my training around like what my weaknesses were, because not everybody's going to have the same weaknesses, not everybody's going to need to train the same things to get to the same goal, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to do my own research to kind of see what would benefit me the most, what would kind of help me kind of like optimize my training to reach my goal. So Hello said there's a live tomorrow. Yeah. Hello, I'll still do the live stream tomorrow. So tomorrow's live stream is going to be just random questions I got from the week. And it'll be a little longer than this one. Wait, Jerry, what's your Instagram name? Oh, Jerry5, is that you? Orion said, just curious, what's your standing reach? My standing reach is about 7'3". Jerry5, yeah. I just found your name. Thanks for joining the live stream. Hillel said, all right, great. Yeah, so tomorrow's Q&A, if you guys are new to this Q&A, I usually do these around like 5, 6 Eastern time, United States, if you guys are in different countries. But yeah, I'll do one shorter one throughout the week, just like more of a topical one like this one, just looking into different, like this one was just looking into different exercises and ways to train vertical jumping. And then the Friday Q&As are just more questions I got from the week and just answering those. Oh yeah, and then for the rest time, I just realized I didn't answer that. So in the study too, they when they were training the two separate groups, they tested, or they had them rest for 3 to 5 minutes in between each set. So that's what they found is the most optimal rest time in between sets, and that's what I have found from reading multiple articles, that the 3 to 5 minute rest time in between sets seems to be the best way to to train. And if you're doing the contrast training, one of the articles I read talked about how if you're going to do the loaded movement to get the most out of the post activation potentiation, you should do the heavy loaded movement. Take like 30 seconds to a minute, but no more than that, so that way you still have the PAP, and then do the contrast movement, and then after that cycle, then take the 3 to 5 minutes before the next set. Dr. Christ said, Mike, our reach is almost the same because mine is 7'5" and yours is 7'3", and I'm 5'9", so we basically got the same reach. Yeah, it's really close to the same, Dunks for Christ. Jerry looks said, yeah, give me that file I was talking to on you. Jerry said, what does your diet look like, by the way? Oh, thanks, by the way. Um, 1 second. So yeah, so my diet I mean, it's definitely more carb protein compared to fat. Right now, like those are my macros. My macros would probably be, let's see, actually I could look right now. It's probably about, actually I could probably about 50% protein, 30% carb, 20 fat. That would probably be my macros right now. I'm trying to get a lot of protein and then have carbs, really close to protein, and then fat definitely is the lowest for me. But nutritional wise, I mean, like, are you talking like what kind of food do I eat and stuff, or drink a lot of water? I mean, that's basically like the only liquid I drink. My pre-workout, I'll drink like coffee, just like black coffee. Like breakfast, it'll be like eggs. I just try to get a lot of protein. A lot of protein and carb. Breakfast is probably my biggest meal. I like to get a lot of protein and carbs in that meal, and then have it kind of like wind down as the day goes on. So like I'm not eating like bigger meals throughout the day. It's just breakfast is the biggest, and then kind of the amount of food I eat throughout the day just decreases. And if you guys haven't been on my Instagram, I'll post like a summary of the Q&A, of these Q&As right after the live stream. So look for that on my Instagram at LikeMikeBarrins. Right after this Q&A, I'll post like some bullet points from what I talked about. Cherry said, "How do you deal with fast food?" I usually just don't eat it. I can't even say like when the last time I had fast food was. I mean, I'm sure it was like not, you know, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, I just don't eat. I just stay away from fast food. I just feel like you can make so much more food at home compared to fast food. So, and I like cooking too. So, I don't mind making something compared to going out to buy it, even if it is fast food or, convenient. I'd rather take a little bit longer and make a little bit better food than to go get something quicker and, you know, sacrifice some nutritional value, I guess. But yeah, I'm probably gonna end this Q&A in the next couple minutes if you guys have any last questions. But yeah, that's everything I wanted to go through with this Q&A. Is just answering his question. And with his training, it was definitely more endurance. Training his muscles for 110 seconds total is definitely more endurance compared to the strength power. And with the growth, the article actually also talked about how bodybuilders, even if they don't know it, like most of the time, like a bicep curl fits into the 40 to 60 second, 50 to second range, and doing 6 to 15 reps is more of the growth. Is more of like the growth. What am I trying to say? It's more of the growth way to train, I guess you could say. Jerry said, "Thanks, man. I got to study for finals. Good luck with your finals. Finals are not fun, but get them done, man." Oh yeah, so I think I'm gonna end this Q&A here. Again, look for the summary if you guys want to check it out, or any of the articles or references are in the description below. The summary will be on my Instagram right after this. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this Q&A. Stay tuned for tomorrow's Q&A and for more workouts. If you guys want to check out tomorrow's Q&A, it'll be around the same time as this one. And I'll just be answering questions from the week that I got. So stay tuned for that. Dunks for Christ said, "See you, Mike. See you later." Dunks for Christ. Thank you guys for joining this live stream, though. I'm going to end it here, so I will see you guys later. See you guys.